want you to imagine a journey that, honestly, it seems completely impossible on its face.
Oh, yeah, it really does.
Right. Like, picture the dark, kind of acrid exhaust puffing out of a semi-truck on a busy highway. Or, visualize the thick soot billowing from a distant summer forest fire. Now, try to imagine how that specific microscopic cloud of smoke eventually ends up inside the glass of cold milk you drink, or right in the middle of the grilled steak you're eating for dinner.
It sounds like a magic trick, honestly, but it's actually this highly efficient global environmental pipeline, and, well, human beings are sitting at the very end of it.
Which is exactly the mission of our deep dive into the source material today. We are unpacking this massive, truly eye-opening review article on a class of chemicals called Polycyclic Aromatic Hydrocarbons, or PAHs.
Yeah, PAHs. They're everywhere.
They really are. And this research compiles data from all over the world to trace these ubiquitous environmental pollutants. So we're going to figure out what they are, how they infiltrate the global food chain, and the deeply surprising ways they interact with human biology once they get inside our cells.
And to really grasp the scale of this, we kind of have to start at their origin. PAHs are primarily born from a very specific event, which is the incomplete combustion of organic materials.
Meaning when things burn, but not all the way.
Exactly. Whenever things like fossil fuels, coal, petroleum products, or even biomass like cigarette smoke or forest fires burn, even natural phenomena like volcanic eruptions, if they burn without enough oxygen to completely incinerate the material, PAHs are the resulting byproduct.
I actually like to think of PAHs like the environmental glitter of the chemical world.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Because they are produced by almost everything that burns, they're nearly impossible to get rid of, and they just get absolutely everywhere. You think you've cleaned up your environment, but there's always some microscopic glitter lingering in the background.
Yeah, the glitter analogy works perfectly. And their persistence really comes down to how they are physically constructed. To understand why they simply won't go away, we have to look at their unique chemical armor.
Yeah, I read in the study that they're basically built like microscopic tanks. But what does that actually mean at a molecular level?
Well, it comes down to their shape. PAHs are organic compounds made of 2 or more fused aromatic rings.
Okay, fused rings.
Right. Think of these rings as tightly band hexagons of carbon atoms. In a hexagon, the carbon atoms share their electrons in this continuous looping circuit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that sharing locks them together into an incredibly stable, almost indestructible chemical shield. Nature's enzymes simply cannot find a weak point to pry them apart.
So the number of carbon rings basically dictates how tough the armor is.
Precisely. We generally divide them into 2 camps based on their weight. First, you have the low molecular weight PAHs.
The lighter ones.
Exactly. These have 2 or 3 rings. They are lighter, they often float around in the gas phase, and they cause acute, immediate toxicity, like think sudden skin or eye irritation from heavy smoke.
Right, okay.
But then you have the high molecular weight PAH, which have 4 to 6 fused rings.
The heavyweights.
Yeah, these are the bruisers. Because they are heavy, they exist primarily in the particulate phase, meaning they are basically solid dust or soot.
And those are the more dangerous ones, right?
Oh, absolutely. These are the ones highly associated with severe carcinogenic and mutagenic effects. Out of the hundreds of PAHs out there, the U.S. EPA has actually identified 16 priority PAHs.
Wow, 16 of them.
Yeah, and if this group had a supervillain, it would undoubtedly be benzo, a pyrini, or BAP. It's the most toxic, the most extensively studied, and it goes directly after your DNA.
That is terrifying. But beyond the carbon rings, 2 defining traits really stood out to me in the research. The sources note they are hydrophobic, meaning they absolutely repel water, and they are lipophilic, meaning they aggressively bond to fat.
Yes. And those 2 traits are the core reason they are so incredibly resistant to degradation in the natural environment.
I am stuck on a contradiction here, though.
Okay, what is it?
Well, if these heavy, high molecular weight PAHs completely repel water, they can't travel dissolved in the rain or flow in the rivers, right? So how on earth are they crossing oceans and spreading all over the entire globe?
That is the big question. Because they hate water, they refuse to dissolve in the moisture in the air or the oceans. Instead, they cling desperately to whatever solid mass they can find.
Oh, I see.
Mostly that means airborne particulate matter. Like microscopic soot or dust particles, specifically PM2.5, that dust acts as their global transit system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the wind catches these microscopic pH-coated particles and just carries them across continents.
So they're essentially hitchhiking on dust storms and smog.
Exactly. And the data the review article compiles on this global occurrence shows just how far they travel. While natural sources like volcanoes and petroleum seeps do contribute, human anthropogenic activities vastly outweigh nature in most regions.
Like vehicle exhaust and industrial emissions.
Right. Vehicle exhaust, petroleum refining, municipal waste incineration. The contrast in the global data sets is just staggering.
Let's actually translate some of those raw numbers from the study, because the multipliers are wild.
They really are.
Like in the air we breathe, household air pollution in parts of China, where reliance on indoor coal combustion is high, showed airborne PAH levels reaching up to 400 and 796 nanograms per cubic meter.
Which is incredibly high.
Right, because compared to the Basque Country in Spain, which had incredibly low levels of just 0.79 nanograms per cubic meter, that is a massive difference.
Yeah, and we see that same intense variance in the soil, which acts as a massive sink for these compounds once they finally settle out of the air.
Oh, right, because they have to land eventually.
Exactly. If you sample rural forest soil in China's Pearl River Delta, it shows a mere 35 nanograms per gram. But if you look at heavily urbanized soil in Indianapolis, in the U.S., it hits 36,500.
Wait, 36,000? That is insane.
Yeah. But the water data is what really highlights the extremes. Contrast the pristine seawater off the coast of Japan, which sits at 0.03 nanograms per liter, with the Mvuti River in South Africa.
Oh, I remember reading this. The South African river hit over 16 million nanograms per liter.
Yes, 16,585,000 to be exact.
That just stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
When I see numbers mapping that kind of extreme contamination, but also detecting things as low as 0.03 in the ocean, it makes me wonder how scientists even manage to measure these exact concentrations.
It's extremely difficult. To find something on that minute scale, scientists basically have to pull apart the environmental sample molecule by molecule.
Literally.
Pretty much. They use modern laboratory analytical methods like gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, or GCMS, or high-performance liquid chromatography.
Okay, so advanced lab tech.
Very advanced. They vaporize the sample and basically weigh the remaining molecules to fingerprint the exact type of PAH present. Accurate monitoring at this microscopic scale is the absolute bedrock of global public health protection.
Because if we can't detect it, we can't track it.
Exactly.
So let's follow that path then. We have a clear picture of PAHs saturating the air, clinging to the soil, and polluting the rivers. How does that environmental glitter actually translate to the grocery store?
Well, it operates through atmospheric deposition and bioaccumulation. Let's trace it step by step using everyday examples.
Okay, lead the way.
It starts with those airborne, PAH-coated dust particles raining down onto agricultural land. They settle directly onto the leaves of crops.
Like spinach or wheat.
Right. And at the exact same time, the plant's roots are actively sucking up PAH from contaminated soil and irrigation water.
So the plant is getting hit from the top down by the air and the bottom up by the roots.
Exactly. Then livestock eat that contaminated feed, and they drink the water. Now remember that key trait we mentioned earlier? PAHs are lipophilic.
They love fat.
They absolutely love fat.
Yeah.
So when a cow eats contaminated grass, the PAH don't just pass through its digestive system. They seek out and lock heavily into the animal's fat cells.
They bioaccumulate.
Yes, and from there, they are transferred directly into animal-derived foods.
So it's essentially a toxic relay race. The PAH baton is passed from the truck's tailpipe to the rain, to the grass, to the cow, straight into your glass of milk.
That is exactly what happens, and the global food data in the review shows this clearly. For vegetables, spinach in Iran tested at over 2 nanograms per gram, while red amaranth in Bangladesh showed a massive 1240.
Wow.
And milk is particularly vulnerable because of its fat content. Mature human breast milk in Spain showed low levels around 1.34 nanograms per gram. But powdered milk samples in Egypt contained 8,200.
8,200. That is staggering.
Because they are fat-soluble, they concentrate wherever fat concentrates. But it isn't just about what the plant or animal absorbed. The review emphasizes that human exposure is primarily dietary, and our cooking methods matter immensely.
Right, the cooking factor. Because we can actively manufacture PAHs right on our plates.
Because PAHs are formed by incomplete combustion, high-temperature roasting, smoking, and grilling actively promote PAH formation.
So when you throw a burger on the grill.
Exactly. The fat drips down onto the hot coals. That fat combusts, and the resulting smoke carries newly minted PAHs right back up, coating the surface of your meat.
The study actually had a great example of this. Raw beef in Egypt had very low baseline levels, just 2.6 nanograms per gram. But cooked pork in Denmark, a heavily roasted product, had 220.
Yep. We are actively generating these pollutants in our own kitchens and backyards.
Okay, so we followed the journey from the exhaust pipe through the environment onto the grill and into the stomach. But the real danger, the core biological mechanism, happens once you ingest that food and it gets inside your cells.
This is where things get really intense.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because there's this paradox of PAH toxicity that blew my mind. Many of these compounds aren't actually instantly lethal on their own. They're relatively inert. So what goes wrong?
The tragedy is that your liver tries to defend you, and that is what triggers the damage. They require what's called metabolic activation.
Okay, break that down for me.
When PAHs enter the body, the liver recognizes them as foreign toxins. It wants to process and excrete them, basically pee them out. But remember, they are fat-loving. You can't urinate fat.
Right.
So the liver deploys a specific class of enzymes called cytochrome P450 to make the PAHs water-soluble.
It tries to change their chemical structure.
It forces oxygen atoms onto the PAH structure. But unfortunately, this detoxification attempt completely backfires. By adding oxygen, the liver converts that stable carbon ring into a highly reactive intermediate, specifically things called epoxides.
So let me unpack this. Our own body's biological cleanup crew accidentally arms the bog.
Yes, the original PAH was stable. The new intermediate metabolite is incredibly unstable and violently reactive. It generates extreme oxidative stress, flooding the body with reactive oxygen species, or ROS.
Oh.
And crucially, these epoxides desperately want to bind to something, so they seek out and bind directly to your cellular DNA and proteins.
They physically attach themselves to our genetic code.
Yes. They create what scientists call PAH DNA adducts. Imagine a piece of sticky gum jammed into the teeth of a zipper.
Oh, that's a brilliant visual.
When your cell naturally tries to unzip and read its DNA to replicate, it hits this bulky chemical adduct. The mechanism jams, causing massive genetic mutations. If the damage is too severe, it leads to apoptosis, which is cell death.
And if it doesn't die?
If the cell survives but copies the mutation, that is the literal initiation of cancer.
This cellular level explosion doesn't just stay local in the liver, though, does it?
Not at all. It sends shockwaves through almost every major system in the body. The resulting wave of oxidative stress creates a system-wide fallout.
Let's actually walk through that physiological fallout, starting with the lungs. Because obviously breathing soot particles causes things like asthma and COPD.
Right, but it goes deeper than just physical irritation. Specifically, the oxygen-containing PAH, or OPAH, actively disrupt the tricarboxylic acid cycle in your cells.
Which affects energy production.
Exactly. And that disruption drastically elevates the risk of lung cancer.
And then there's the cardiovascular system. As these toxins circulate, they increase total cholesterol and LDL, the bad cholesterol, but they also do something wild to the arterial walls.
Yes, the foam cells.
Right.
The oxidative stress causes lipids to accumulate in the arterial walls. Your immune cells try to eat the damaged lipids, get bloated with fat, and turn into foam cells. That leads straight to atherosclerosis. Plus, PAHs increase red blood cell distribution with.
Which means your red blood cells start varying wildly in size.
Exactly, which is terrible for heart health. But as the blood continues to circulate, it carries these compounds into the endocrine and reproductive systems.
Where they act as endocrine-disrupting chemicals, or EDCs.
Right. Remember those fused aromatic rings? Because of that structure, they chemically disguise themselves to mimic and block natural hormones.
They literally hijack the body's communication system.
They do. In the thyroid, they alter TSH, T3, and T4 levels. In the pancreas, they actually lower beta cell mass, which directly impacts insulin and blood sugar.
And the adrenal gland, too.
Yeah, they disrupt the adrenal glands so severely it risks causing Cushing's disease or even Addison's disease.
This changes the whole paradigm. We usually just think of smog as, bad for the lungs. We don't realize that the invisible particles we inhale or eat are actually changing how our body processes sugar or stress.
It's completely systemic, and it even affects the nervous system. Because they love fat, they easily cross the blood-brain barrier.
Oh, no.
Once inside, they interact with specific proteins, like the A42 proteins. This interaction causes the proteins to misfold and clump together, which is a mechanism directly linked to Alzheimer's disease.
And meanwhile, your excretory system is still trying to get rid of them.
Right. As your body tries to urinate these metabolites out, the intense oxidative stress triggers the formation of calcium oxalate crystals in the kidneys.
Which causes severe kidney stones.
Exactly. It's a cascading effect from head to toe.
So we've gone from the combustion of fossil fuels to global environmental transit, onto the dinner plate, and finally into a jammed zipper in our DNA, causing system-wide chaos.
It is a grim picture, I won't lie.
It is. But I do want to synthesize this and point out an empowering note from the research. We can't completely avoid PAHs, but adopting an antioxidant-rich diet and exercising regularly can actively reduce the oxidative stress caused by these inevitable exposures.
Absolutely. Antioxidants basically intercept those reactive epoxides before they can bind to your DNA, and exercise improves your body's ability to clear toxins.
So to you, the listener, being well-informed about this invisible chemical world really does give you the power to make smarter dietary and lifestyle choices. You can actively build your body's resilience against the environmental glitter you encounter.
Knowledge is definitely the best defense here.
It really is. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the source material, I want to leave you with one lingering, somewhat philosophical thought to explore on your own.
Oh, I'm ready.
We learned today that PAHs themselves are largely inert until our liver's natural, millions of years old detoxification process tries to break them down. It's our own body that accidentally weaponizes them into dangerous epoxides. If our own biology's attempt to protect us is exactly what makes these modern environmental chemicals so incredibly dangerous, it makes you wonder how many other supposedly harmless compounds are we interacting with every day that our own biology might be weaponizing against us without us even realizing it.